Hello friends, my name is Jake Montanez and thanks for watching Right Shift. This is my next update on NaNoWriMo for the year, and so far I'm up to 34,000 words, which is pretty decent considering I skipped a few days at the beginning of the month, so I would technically be pretty far behind. But it's currently the 15th as I'm filming this, which means I should have 25,000 words, so I'm doing pretty good. A few of the things I've kind of learned while I've been doing this is different from last year where I had a plan of where the story was supposed to be going. This time I really don't have one. I'm just letting it create itself organically. And I've split this up into approximately 3 different main characters so far, which is definitely different from last year's. The main character, Trinea, was the one that I followed through the entire first book by itself, which is part of the rewrites I'm going to be doing. Is I'm going to be including the secondary character, Daitan, as one of the other point of views that I want to be focusing on. And since his story changed a little bit through the course of writing the initial story versus going into the sequel, it's going to require me to do some of those rewrites. So that's where I'm at with that. The story is definitely taking some interesting turns, and I'm really excited to see where it's going. And my brain is finally starting to gel how it's going to work out towards some sort of an end point. And even though I'm 2/3 of the way through the goal for NaNoWriMo, I definitely feel like I have a lot more of a path for it to go before it reaches a proper conclusion. Other stuff that's going on is that over the last weekend I went to the Saratoga Comic Con and I spoke to a couple of different authors about their journey into getting their stories published. One of them is C.L. Schneider, and I met her last year at the Comic Con during November and talked to her very briefly then because I didn't have much of a clue of what I was looking for while I was trying to figure out this whole writing and getting things published situation. And this year I have something that I've got written, and I was able to ask her several questions about how to go about doing rewrites, whether it was beneficial or not to have a sequel written before starting rewrites on a first book or a second book if I was writing a third. And she was very helpful in talking to me about those, and she also described for me the process of picking out editors and how long it takes usually for editing to get done, which was a really nice perspective thing for me to understand how long it would take once I get my story to a point where I want to have it edited by somebody and get that sent off. She also said she'd be able to provide some references for artists and different artist groups on Facebook, so I'm holding off on that one until I'm ready to get an artist done for a cover picture, and we'll see how that goes when I get to that point. The other guy is Michael Rankin, who just wrote his first book over the summer, and this was the first time he'd had a booth at the Comic-Con, which was neat because it was a very different experience from talking to Schneider, because his was just him, a table, some books that he had printed out, and some bookmarks. And Schneider had multiple books already on her table, had nice big banner backgrounds and everything, and it was just a very different presentation. So I knew he was much earlier on in the process of getting a book out there, and he said it'd taken him a couple of years to get his book written, and finally got it to a point where he could feel comfortable publishing it. And it was just nice talking to someone who's literally about a step and a half ahead of where I wanted to be for right now. So that gave me a lot of confidence in myself to be able to finish what I've been starting and get that published so that I can move on and see if I can get a publishing career of some sort, either self-publishing or traditional publishing going. Schneider said that she was going completely through Amazon, which is what my plan was to begin with anyway. So knowing that she's finding some sort of success with that and is doing pretty well for herself gives me a lot of hope that I can actually do good for myself as well. One of the things I've recognized since last NaNoWriMo is that I made a pretty big mistake, I think, in stopping what I was writing and taking like 6 months off before I picked it back up and actually finished the story to completion as far as the first draft of it goes. And this time I don't really want to make that mistake. I just want to keep on writing it until I get to a stopping point, because what that did for me between my first time session of writing it through November versus when I finished it off in, I think, May and June of last year, or this year, sorry, was that there was a big tone shift between what the characters were doing, how they were thinking, where they were acting, how they were being treated by other characters. And part of that was just a mind shift change on my own part when I approached the writing versus where I decided to take the story after I had begun that pause. So in order for me to avoid that this time around, I'm just going to write straight through and finish everything off. In conclusion, I think it was a really good idea for me to go to Comic Con and try to talk to those other authors that are out there and get a better idea of the path I'm going to be taking as I'm working through this process of getting something published on Amazon. And being able to talk with them is a great way to build some additional relations. I've connected with them on Twitter, things like that. I have access to some of their followers if they retweet anything that I've got, and hopefully that'll help me build some sort of base of readership, or at least interest in the stories that I've got going on. So connectivity, networking, all that stuff, something I'm not super great at, is now another path I'm starting to try to branch out. And I hope, through the creation of videos like this, as well as sharing my stories on Facebook and on Twitter and other social media platforms, that people will start to find me, hopefully, and start reading some of my stories. And I hope that other people are finding success with anything that they write during NaNoWriMo. And I appreciate you for watching this video, as rambling as it may be, and wish you best of luck, and thank you for watching. Have a nice day.